What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes, and this is going to be my comprehensive analysis and review of the new Legendary and Mythic Hero banner featuring Eitri and Thorr. So I'll be going over the best builds that you can run on these units, and also I'll be rating all of the other units present on this banner based on their fodder and their potential. And I will also be comparing Eitri and Thorr with the existing Fire and Astra mythic units in a tier list format just to see where they stand. So I'm actually going to be starting with Thorr because I feel like she's a lot more interesting to me personally, and she's here as an Astra mythic unit. So we have seen her in the Tempest Trial as an Axe Flyer, and here as an Astra mythic, she can boost your defense, which is pretty good for tanking and stuff like that. But in general, you're going to be facing a lot more magical threats in Ether raids than you're going to be facing physical threats. There are of course going to be some physical threats, but in general, it is going to be more towards the magical side. So she's actually a really good Astra mythic unit despite the fact that Regan and Plumeria have set such a high standard for a good mythic in Astra season, and she can do this because of her kit and her slotsy skill. So Thorr has got War God Mjolnir, which is effective on armor units and gives her -1 special cooldown. So she can have a 2-turn Bonfire and a 4-turn Galeforce, and having effective damage against armor units is extremely good because armor units have risen in popularity with the save skills and a lot of the tools that they have access to. So Thorr can easily destroy pretty much most of the armor units with her high attack stat and this armor effectiveness. There are only few armor units that she's not able to break through. Stuff like Arden, who's red, who has really high defense, and of course, Brave Hector does not have the armor weakness, but still, Thorr has got the weapon strangle advantage. So with this weapon, she wants to be above 25% HP so that she can get +6 attack during the combat and inflict -6 attack debuff on the foe during the combat. This also gives her the guaranteed follow-up attack, which is really helpful because Thorr is actually pretty slow, and then if she's not adjacent to an ally, she can neutralize the foe's bonuses. So this makes her a pretty solid unit in general because she can tank and she can also work in the player phase as well. And we'll see more of that later on with her kit. She's got Bonfire, which of course, like I said, becomes a 2-turn special. But there are also other specials you can run, like Luna is pretty nice for tank busting, and you can also run Galeforce. Attack defense push 4 is okay, but the recall damage is not the best with the HP threshold condition that she's got with her weapon. She also comes with a new skill, Inflow Guard, so instead of healing you up, this skill actually gives you the guard effect, which in my opinion is a lot better than healing, because healing can actually work against you at times if you're trying to set up like a Wings of Mercy chain with a Cavalier or a flying unit. So Flow Guard is probably going to have the same restrictions, and it does give you the partial null follow-up, which allows you to bypass the follow-up negation skills. So this pretty much allows Thorr to double stuff like Brave Hector and also Fallen Edelgard, who have follow-up negation skills in general, and they're pretty common. And Flow Guard also inflicts the guard effect, so they cannot retaliate back with a special like Hector can do with Special Fighter Bonfire, and similarly can be done with Valentine Gustav, Fallen Edelgard, and all of these units. So the guard effect is extremely good in busting up those tanks along with the armor effective damage that she's got with her weapon. So she's really specialized in just destroying the armor units in general. And then we come to the skill that makes Thorr such a good Astra mythic unit. Worldbreaker is basically a drive special acceleration skill, and its wording is really similar to Special Fighter, which means that it works in both phases for Thorr as well as the allies within 2 spaces. So this is absolutely insane because this works on defensive teams as well as the offensive Galeforce teams. So with Thorr, you can basically not run Steady Breath on your armor units or Special Fighter, and you can run the other fighter skills like Crafty Fighter, for example, which can give him the guard effect. So this could be done, and they will still be able to retaliate back with their specials thanks to this special acceleration that the slotsy skill provides to them. And this also frees up the Heavy Blade, Flashing Blade, in general, those kinds of skills on Galeforce units, because if you're going to be using Thorr with the Galeforce team, then she can just teleport in with Wings of Mercy and provide this kind of special acceleration to the allies. So you can basically run these skills, which can give you more stats and their Sacred Seal or Slot A, and that is a huge thing which Thorr can change. So in general, she's going to be a fantastic unit for Galeforce teams as well as the Save Ball support teams. There's not often that you have this kind of really versatile support unit which can work with pretty much any kind of playstyle. So this kind of drive special acceleration is pretty insane, and for example, you don't really need to run Brave Lucina as a support unit if you're going to be using Thorr. Thorr can basically do the same thing but also act as a mythic unit So in the slot where you had to use Brave Lucina, you could use some other support unit, like maybe Flame or Muspell or something like that. Now it's still, like, Brave Lucina can run the Ruse skills and the Pulse Ties, which Thorr cannot really run, but overall, for most people, Thorr can just fit into the teams really easily as a mythic unit. So she's definitely going to be a fantastic Astra mythic because of the Slotsy skill, and she does have that longevity as a unit because in general, support units are going to be aging up to be better than combat units, and Thorr is basically like a hybrid. She excels at busting through the tanks as well as providing the allies with some really useful support. And no matter your playstyle, everyone wants the special acceleration. So in general, she's going to be a fantastic Astra mythic if you're lacking one. And even if you have Plumeria and Regan, Thorr still is a really fantastic Astra mythic. So the things that she opens up is really unique, which no other mythic unit does, in terms of freeing up your Sacred Seal slot from Steady Breath, the Flashing Blade, Heavy Blade, and all of that. And for Galeforce teams, in general, as a person who uses a lot of Galeforce teams, it's really annoying to meet the stat checks of Heavy Blade especially and Flashing Blade. So that's just not there for Thorr or the allies who use this Slotsy skill. And that is pretty amazing. Cannot wait to use her if I do get her. So that's Thorr. Really promising as an Astro mythic unit. And I didn't think I would say that after Regan and Plumeria, but here we are. And in general, she can be used with her base kit, but there are definitely skills which you can expand to. And this is her stat spread. I think it's going to be pretty similar to that, as it's pretty recent from the Tempest trial. And from what I've calculated, she actually has the same defense stat when she does the bonfire damage. So it's pretty safe to say it is going to be pretty similar. And her fodder is actually pretty amazing with attack defense push 4 and flow guard, which you can inherit at the same time. So someone like Oter, for example, actually likes having flow guard a lot more than having flow refresh, in my opinion. So something like that can definitely be done for those kinds of units. And even if you're a faster unit, still you can appreciate the guard effect that this skill provides you. And at least you can set up into Wings of Mercy. If you want, like, healing in general as a fast unit, then you can run Surge Sparrow, which will give you a lot better healing. So that's Thorr. Really fantastic as a unit, and that's why I've rated her 10 out of 10. She's not exactly of the tier of Plumeria or Regan, but she's quite close there because of her versatility and what she brings to the table as a combat unit as well as a support unit. So yeah, these are the skills, but I'm going to be expanding on how you can have these in the build itself. So the first build is a budget build. You can run this with aerobatics just for the teleportation, or you can even go with attack defense solo. Keep in mind that she does have the solo condition if you want to ignore the visible buffs of the foes. So that's always an option when you're going to be facing those kinds of foes. And she can be run with this kind of build with distant guard just as a budget save ball support unit. So if you have a team with near save and far save units, then you basically put Thorr on the front line and they can save Thorr from the attacks, and Thorr can provide them with the Slotsy skill, which can give them the special acceleration and also give them the distant guard effect. And the best thing is that Thor's Slotsy skill is not limited to any unit like Brave Lucina's is, for example. So mage tanks like Henriette, Halloween, Ileana can actually take the effect and just accelerate their specials, which they were previously not easily able to with something like Brave Lucina, for example. And you can also use Thorr as a Dark Shrine Soaker. So if you're going to be using tanks with Thorr, this is definitely an option because with Fortress Defense Res and Slotty and Sacred Seal, she actually hits pretty good amount of mixed bulk, even though she's not going to be getting any kind of extra stats as a mythic unit. So this could be done to just soak those kinds of annoying stuff. And of course, she's going to be able to easily soak the chill defense for the most part, unless you have some really high defense near save armor unit like Arden or something like that. Then in that case, you probably need to run like the Unity skill or Slick Fighter on them. But in general, if you're using a tank who has got lower defenses than Thorr, then she could function as a Dark Shrine Soaker. Altina is also used for the same role, but Thorr actually still functions really well as a combat unit despite running, Fortress Defense Res. The link skills are also pretty amazing for support because when Thorr is going to be functioning as a support unit, most of the fighting is going to be done by the near save, far save armor units or your tanks. So you can just run a link skill in slot B and that's definitely an option. Now, if you want to use her a bit more as a combat unit, then she can function as a Galeforce Wings of Mercy unit. So Wings of Mercy is going to be helping you just teleport in after your initiator has fallen into the HP threshold, and this could be someone like Brave Erica, for example, or if you set up with Winter Bernadetta, that's also an option. So in general, there are a lot of really good Galeforce initiators which you can utilize with Thorr and then just chain the World Breaker effect on the other allies who may not have Flashing Blade or Heavy Blade. So this is a budget build and can definitely work with that. If you do not really like the recall damage of attack defense push, then attack defense unity is also an option with the Galeforce build, because if you're debuffed on those stats, she doesn't really care with that unity skill. And as a Galeforce unit, her attack stat is going to be the main stat, but unfortunately here she's not going to be having the flow guard, so you're not going to be able to enjoy that partial null follow-up, unfortunately. So if you're facing a unit who has got higher speed with follow-up negation, for example, Thorr is not going to be able to double them, so that's the drawback of running Wings of Mercy on Thorr, but still it's like really good, and I can definitely see myself running these kinds of Galeforce builds. If you want to invest a bit more into her, then attack defense catch 4 is also an option for just increasing your throughput, and like I said, she can function as a tank buster with Luna. So even if you're facing some really bulky near save armor unit with like Hardy Fighter or something ridiculous like that, she can still just bust through them with her sheer power and the guard effect, the special acceleration that she gets from her Slotsy skill, and just pave the way for your other units to function. So she can be really helpful against those kinds of armor units that you face who have near save. So this is definitely a role that she can do, and she's actually going to be pretty bulky as well, so she can definitely take some hits here and there. And finally, if you invest heavily into her, then you can have her as your arena unit, and she's not going to be scoring the highest by modern standards, but still it's pretty decent with scoring 180 BST, and you can just run flow guard build if you just want to focus on your melee matchups, but she can also run distance stance at higher investment where she's going to be having a lot of bulk. And keep in mind that she can get a lot of attack debuffs with the near trace skill as well as the weapons debuffs, so she can get pretty bulky on both spectrums. So this is an option only for max investment. Near trace skill is pretty nice because as a flying unit you do not really have too many options for slot B. Compared to something like guard bearing, near trace is a lot better because you can at least get the movement utility in the player phase. So let's rank the Astra Mythic units now. So I've pretty much used these units a lot, and this is just from my experience. So in tier 1 I would absolutely put Plumeria and Dragon. These are going to be useful in every single match. Sure, Plumeria is not as useful as Peony because she cannot give the orders buff, but still having a Mythic Dancer is always going to be amazing, and Plumeria does give you extra speed, which can definitely be helpful in many scenarios. Regan is just, you know, everyone knows how great Regan is because of the Canto, because of Sather Shell, her power is just really great. And then in tier 2 I would put Thorr. She is pretty much the third best mythic unit and quite close to tier 1 in my opinion, and this is because of her versatile playstyle, as I've explained before, with how she can function for any kind of playstyle. In tier 3 I would put Ashera because she can provide you with extra resistance and the null panic, and she can also function pretty well as a cleanup unit because of her power. In tier 4 and 5 I would just have Naga and Altina, the original Astra Mythics. Naga is still marginally better than Altina in my opinion because of Divine Fang giving you the utility against Saros and Duma. And Altina is a pure combat mythic unit, so she really needs some kind of remix to make her stand out, because Thorr here is a hybrid who can function in the combat as well as support her allies. Altina needs to be something like that basically. So let me know in the comments what do you think about my Astra Mythic tier list, and now let's move on to Eitri, who has been waiting for quite a while. So Eitri is actually not a mythic unit, instead she is a fire legendary unit, and she is a green flying mage. And she's actually going to be a really good fire legendary unit because a lot of the arena maps are flyer favored. So having a flying unit like Eitri who has got Canto is absolutely amazing, and I think she's mainly going to be functioning the best as an arena unit because of that reason. So she's got Grim Brooker, and this gives her +3 attack, and it gives her Canto 2 from turns 1 to 4. So this almost seems like she was supposed to be a mythic unit because turns 1 through 4 sounds a lot more like Ether Raids with Canto of Regan than it does in Arena. So kind of wish that she had the permanent Canto, but oh well. So this weapon's effect is always going to be active in the player phase, but if you want to activate this in the enemy phase, then she needs to be not adjacent to an ally. So this inflicts -6 attack and resistance on the foe during the combat, and she gets an auto follow up. So pretty standard weapon overall, all things considered. And then she has got the Canto skill, which is going to be really helpful in Arena, but again I wish it lasted longer. Now there can definitely be matches which you can finish in that turn limit, but just having the permanent Canto like Legendary Ephraim for example would have been much better for Arena scenario. So she's got Dragon Fang, which is definitely not her best special. Glimmer is a lot better, and then she's got Attack Rest Solo and Divine Recreation. So this is her preferred slot B skill, which is much appreciated because flying range units don't have too many slot B options, so this is pretty much the best you can get on Eitri. So at start of combat, if the foe is above half health, then she can inflict -4 debuff to all stats of the foe during the combat, and she also reduces damage from foe's first attack by 30%, and then she can use that damage to boost up her next attack by the total damage that she's reduced. So this might sound really similar to Ice Mirror, or actually similar to Nyx and how her weapon functions. So you could consider like Eitri to be like a flying Nyx in a sense, because she can reduce the damage with this damage reduction and then power up her next attack, which means that because she depends so much on her auto follow up from her weapon, if she faces some kind of null follow up unit, then she's not going to be able to finish off her targets most of the time. So that's something to consider, because null follow up is a pretty common skill, but Eitri is still going to be functioning as a really solid arena unit because of the utility of Canto and her flying mobility. And then she's got attack res rain, so she can stack up a lot of debuffs through her slot C skill, slot B skill, and her weapon, and debuff opponents' attack and resistance by quite a lot. So Eitri can actually be a lot more bulky than you think at first because of all of these debuffs and the damage reduction that she gets from her slot B skill. So here she's going to be using her Dragon Fang. She's also a pretty recent unit that has appeared, so I really doubt her stats are going to be that much different. We already know how her stats are going to be. So she's going to be basically having high attack stat and then having balanced bulk with pretty low speed. So because of this low speed, she depends on her guaranteed follow-up attack from her weapon, and she's going to be functioning as a really solid fire legendary unit because there's no fire legendary who's actually a flying unit. Now, despite me saying that she's a really good fire legendary unit, it doesn't really mean that she's to the level of legendary Sigurd or like legendary Claude. Definitely not legendary Claude. She's solid, but in terms of fire legendary units, and you'll see what I mean by that later on when we talk about the tier list. As for fodder, she provides you with attack res rain. You cannot really inherit attack res rain and attack res solo 4 at the same time because there's really no easily available unit other than young Leon, who's a seasonal 4-star unit who can allow you to have the attack res solo. So if she had something like attack res push, then maybe she could have, given you a much better fodder potential, similar to Plumeria. But yeah, fodder is decent, I guess. It's useful for like flying mages and stuff, or flying dragons in general who are slow. Eitri doesn't have too many options because of being a ranged flying unit, so you can change up attack res solo from that to attack res catch, which doesn't really have the solo condition and in general can give you a better throughput. And sturdy impact is also an option to just annoy the hell out of your opponents because they're not going to be able to double attack you unless they have null follow up, of course, or they're faster than you and they've got some kind of auto follow up or quick riposte. But in most of the cases, sturdy impact is going to be pretty nice, also giving her that extra bulk which is going to be necessary to survive many of the retaliations from the physical units in general. So sturdy impact is still a pretty nice option despite the damage reduction, and divine recreation is not to be touched whatsoever. It should remain the same. It's really good with the debuffs and the damage reduction, and also giving her more firepower. Now if you want to use her in arena, then you could run a 300 SP slot skill so that she can have better scoring, and she's basically going to be the highest scoring fire legendary unit as it is, so you might as well optimize it. For her Sacred Seal, you can basically either move towards the support-oriented options like Aerobatics or Guidance, or you can just increase her firepower with the solo skills or Death Blow. Of course, Death Blow is not really optimal for the arena purpose. Outside of arena, she can also be useful in Aether Raid's defense and also in Aether Raid's offense. I think she's a lot more useful in Aether Raid's offense because of the Canto skill and how you can hit and run. Canto is going to be a pretty annoying thing in Aether Raid's defense, and if the opponents do use null follow up, then it is of course going to be even more annoying because Eitri is not going to be able to follow up. And now let's see how Eitri compares to the other existing fire legendary units. So the power level is definitely different compared to Water or Earth Season, and in general the best fire legendary units are going to be Legendary Lilina and Eitri. Both of them are actually really solid. Lilina has got amazing firepower and also has the horse mobility, but the trenches can be a bit annoying at times. You can also run the Fortray skill on Legendary Lilina and pretty much get the movement utility. Eitri has got Canto, so that is amazing. And this means that you can run Aerobatics and you're not going to be losing out on your movement unlike the Trey skills. So you can still act after using Aerobatics, which is really amazing as a flying unit. Arena maps are flying favored, so combine that with Canto and her mobility and she turns out to be a really fantastic unit who has got good power, but in general she's not going to be liking to face any kind of null follow-up unit because she's going to get shut down. So she's not really as dominant as something like Legendary Claude, for example, in tier 1 of Earth Season. So the power level difference is still there. Eitri is good, but she's not like dominantly amazing in a sense. She's still gonna be nice, but not gonna be that insufferable to face, I guess. And in tier 2, I would definitely put Legendary Ephraim. After his remix and Weapon Refine, he is superb with that Canto and Galeforce utility. He actually has the permanent Canto, so that is amazing, and he can function in both phases as well. The Canto utility is super invaluable in a game mode like Arena where you're not allowed to use movement assist skills like reposition or drawback, so he ends up being a really solid unit, basically zero to hero in a sense. And then in tier 3 we have some other fire legendary units who are also strong but are not going to be having the Canto utility or the stuff which the units above them have. They're still really strong. So Legendary Marth is also extremely good with his Binding Shield 2 and his amazing Weapon Refine. He can function so well in the player phase, also support his allies by buffing them up, and then in the enemy phase he's still going to be sturdy enough to take a lot of the hits. It's just that he doesn't have Canto of Legendary Ephraim, but still he's going to be a really solid unit. Legendary Celica can still be a really fantastic nuke, but unfortunately she can be frail at many times, and her Soul of Zofia has this HP threshold condition for her Desperation, which can be really hard to reach in many matchups where the units will simply one-shot Celica. So that can happen, but still she's a really strong unit. Legendary Hector can provide you with the Tactic Time Pulse and also the defense and resistance buff, so he can function really well with that, but unfortunately his mobility is going to be a problem as an armor unit. Speaking of mobility issues, Legendary Edelgard is up there because she is a player phase focused armor unit who wants to be solo, and that is just too much to ask in an environment like Arena, so she requires some kind of armor mark support or just some kind of support in general. So Legendary Edelgard, despite scoring pretty well, can be a hard unit to use as a legendary unit in many of the matchups and in many of the maps as well, because having an armor unit be solo is pretty hard to do and she's gonna have trouble reaching places in general. So mobility is a top thing for Arena, as you can see with the general theme. And in tier 5 we have got Legendary Roy. He definitely needs some kind of Weapon Refine and like remix to stand out, because his preferred skill doesn't really help him with that. So this is pretty much my ranking of fire legendary units. Let me know what you think about this. And now let's take a quick look at the other units from this banner as well. Dagr is going to be color sharing with Eitri and Thorr, and she makes for a really amazing 6th slot light mythic unit. In my opinion, she's better than Uller, having used both of them, and if you still do not have a 6th slot light mythic unit, then Dagr could be a unit that you could aim to get, especially with this really stacked green pool this time. So Dagr is a really good unit who can provide you support with Pathfinder and can also function really well in the combat, functioning as a Galeforce unit and even as a Wings of Mercy Galeforce unit with Time Pulse in her slot C. Her fodder is not going to be that unique. Attack speed push 4 is present on a million units, and even Tempest is a pretty niche skill altogether. Then we move on to the Blue Pool, and Blue Pool is really good for Dimitri fans, starting with Fallen Dimitri. Fallen Dimitri might not look that impressive at first, but he's actually a really solid unit because of Murderous Lion, giving him the Fire Sweep effect, and this Fire Sweep effect can be used with any other weapon. Ninja Naginata Plus and Ninja Yari Plus are going to be the main ones, which a lot of Fallen Dimitris run, because you can quad attack with Dimitri without taking any counter attack, and you also get the Canto. So Murderous Lion does have speed defense near trace, which makes him pretty unique because infantry units do not have access to these kinds of trace skills. So Fallen Dimitri is going to be functioning as a pretty solid unit. Unfortunately, he will need some kind of help of triggering Galeforce with something like Time Pulse or just pulsing him down with someone like Raphael. His fodder is okay with attack speed solo and Odd Tempest. Legendary Dimitri provides you with a better Odd Tempest fodder, as you can inherit Sturdy Impact at the same time as well. Nott is also present on this banner, and she is pretty much a must-have unit for the Dark Season in Aetherite's defense. She not only gives you Pathfinder, which is pretty insane, but can also boost up the defense of your units, which can be really amazing for making your dancers resilient to the isolation of Mila. So overall, she's going to be a really solid unit, the best Dark Defense Mythic unit, and a must-have. So if you do not have her, then you can try to get her. But Double Nott is also something that you can run, but then you have to trade for the firepower by running something like a Double Nott setup. Her fodder is really amazing with Distant Counter and Attack Speed Menace, which you could inherit at the same time. And these are some of the more universal skills and can be used on so many units. Not to mention both of these are 300 SP, so they function really well for Arena in terms of scoring. Legendary Dimitri definitely has to face some really annoying units now in Arena, with stuff like Legendary Pilot being a water legendary unit, but still Legendary Dimitri can pull his own weight because of Atrocity, giving him that amazing true damage and also having that Spectrum smoke built into it. Air Bar gives him the damage reduction, which is really great, and you can basically use him as a melee focused unit with Sturdy Impact or just the solo skills, but at higher investments you can of course use him with Distant Counter or rather Distant Stance, because Dimitri's resistance is really poor if you're going to be using him with Distant Counter in general. So Distant Stance, which can be obtained from Legendary Fae, is definitely something that Dimitri appreciates. His fodder is really good as you can get Sturdy Impact and Odd Tempest in a single inherit. So that can be really useful for many flying units or infantry units and will have applications in either its defense. In the red pool, we have got Muspell, who's also a very good unit providing the Domain of Flame support, so that can just boost up the power of your team with that true damage, and he can be useful in either its defense to just boost your firepower, which is going to be helping you get past those annoying safe tank teams, and he can also be used as a support unit in either its offense to boost up the power of your tanks so that they can just one-shot a lot of the threats, especially with Thorr providing them with the breath effect from her Slotsy skill. Domain of Flame becomes a really good option if you're going to be trying to just spam specials with your tanks. So he's a pretty good unit, but he himself has a bit awkward playstyle because he'll need quick repose to auto follow up, and his fodder is good but it's kind of niche. The RD defense res 4 is pretty good, but it's only useful in ether raids and also in certain team compositions where you're protecting your structures, but Dragon Wall and Rally Up Attack Plus is his main fodder. So both of these are pretty good skills, and Dragon Wall is a really good option that can be run on so many dragons, even free to play dragons. So that is the fodder that he provides. Saros also has Dragon Wall, but Muspell is going to be giving you the rally skill as well. Legendary Sigurd is basically the best wind legendary unit, and he's a really solid unit even as a one-off copy. You can of course use him in Ether Raid's defense to make life hell for a lot of your foes, but in my opinion he has kind of become manageable over the time with the common presence of these save skills. So many people have pulled for the save skills, and that makes him a lot more manageable in my opinion, because he can take on Legendary Sigurd himself with a near save unit, and then even if he increases the movement of the units on his team, as long as you have units covered properly in a save ball, you can just tank them with a far save unit and a near save unit. So still a really solid unit in general with his preferred weapon and his preferred special of course, which is really busted. So his fodder is actually gotten much better with Dagr, who also provides us with attack defense catch 3. So you can actually inherit attack defense catch 4 and fatal smoke at the same time, which is absolutely amazing. Fatal Smoke is mainly Ether Raid's defense skill with how it can shut down the healing of many Mystic Boost and healing tanks. Plumeria is easily one of the best Astra mythic units, and I've already explained that in my tier list, and the reason is pretty obvious because she is a mythic dancer, so she just makes your Astra season a lot easier if you have her. So if you don't have her, then this is a pretty good chance to get her because the red pool is also pretty good this time. And for her fodder, she provides you with attack res push 4 and attack res rain, which you could inherit at the same time. So this is mainly useful for slow flying mages and flying staff units. Legendary Micaiah is an extremely strong colorless nuke with her firepower, her weapon, and the preferred skill. So Prescience also gives you the damage reduction, which can allow her to have a bit more bulk against the ranged opponents, and she can of course destroy the armor units and the cavalry units with her effective damage. The HP threshold of her weapon will seem really steep at times because she needs to be below half health to get that desperation effect essentially, but that could be done with Maiden Solace or just by the recall damage, and she's going to be hitting extremely hard, easily going to be functioning as a delete button in many occasions. For the fodder, Legendary Micaiah provides you with Fury 4 and Join Distant Guard at the same time. This is going to be useful for many kind of support units who also want to take advantage of the buffs of Distant Guard. So it's a pretty niche skill overall, but a Join Drive skill is in general going to be pretty universally useful. Legendary Corrin is easily one of the better dragon tanks because Primordial Breath and Negating Fang pretty much provide her with everything that she wants as a tank. And you can always replace Shield Pulse with Null Follow-Up so that you can deal with a lot of the modern threats. The best thing about Negating Fang is that it's not nullified by something like Sublime Heaven or Deadeye or any of those damage reduction piercing specials. So we have been seeing a lot of those specials, and specials like Negating Fang don't really care about them. Her fodder is absolutely top tier and quite universally useful, providing you with that distant, counter, and joint drive attack. Like I said before, joint drive skills are extremely useful most of the time, and so is distant counter. Finally, we have got Bramimond as the final unit on this banner. So he is a really solid dark mythic unit, but I feel like he has kind of fallen off over the months from what I've been seeing with my use case personally in Vault of Heaven. So he does hit pretty hard, but at times he's not going to be able to finish the job because he will just get hit by something like a bonfire from Brave Hector. So there are definitely a lot more units with follow-up negation or null follow-up in general, which can make it a bit harder for Bramimond, but still a really solid unit. And he does provide you with a good fodder with attack defense push 4 and lull attack resistance, which you get inherit at the same time. So this is mostly going to be useful for many of the bulky mages. The main thing to note about this banner is that it is going to be lasting for 2 weeks, so you can easily wait and see what Book 6 has to offer first. So in my opinion, if you're a free-to-play player, then do not summon on this banner on the first day. Definitely wait till we get the Book 6 trailer to just see what kind of unit and the banner we're going to be getting. I'm definitely going to be doing that from my free-to-play account. Overall, this banner is pretty stacked. All of these units are pretty useful in general, and they also have decent to good fodder. And the best value that you can get is from the green color, of course, having the color sharing of 2 mythic units in Dagr and Thorr, which both open up the 6th slot, and both are actually really good mythic units. And then we've got Eitri, who's also a really solid legendary unit, and she does go pretty high, so she does have value in Arena. Blue color is mainly for the Dimitri fans, and colorless does give you the wind legendary value. So if you're trying to finish up your wind core, then you can try to get the merges on Corrin and Micaiah. So definitely a pretty stacked banner, but keep in mind that we're going to be getting some more banners next month, so you can plan out accordingly. Book 6 banner, of course, is going to be having the new FEH OC. So again, you can wait and see what that banner is, and this banner is going to be ending in 2 weeks, so we have plenty of time. Feudal Edelgard banner is going to be happening as well because it won on Twitter, so it is going to be having the spark as well. And of course, December means that new Christmas and new New Year banners, and also the rerun of those old banners. And this is going to be next month's legendary hero banner. It will likely have the new FEH OC and probably a wind legendary unit, seeing the season schedule. So a wind legendary unit is definitely a lot more probable. Maybe we could have some kind of colorless wind unit. That is pretty much what I'm guessing. And Choose Your Legends 5 units do have a big chance of happening in December. Like Muspell was after Brave Marth, but they basically skipped Brave Marth and put Muspell first. So that's why Choose Your Legends 5 units definitely have a really solid chance in December's legendary hero banner. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, then make sure to share this video with your friends who are thinking of summoning on this banner, or they really like Thorr or Eitri. And if you enjoyed, then make sure to leave a like and a comment, helps me tremendously. And if you really enjoyed, you could always support me directly by using super thanks or by becoming a YouTube member down below. And for more FEH analysis videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as everyone expecting Eitri to be a mythic unit. So that's it, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.